The Kamala Harris campaign has now dropped its official slogan, Joy.
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 And replaced it with Testy. I know testy, not testes, which have no role at all in her campaign.
You are the dancing queen.
Not just testy, anger too.
She's getting angry. And I wanted to see that anger.
Now, I'm old enough to remember when Democrats didn't like anger. With 19 days until the presidential election, Democrat hopeful VP caterwauling Kamala did her first adversarial interview, her team carefully exposing her to a quick flash 27 minutes of Fox News' Bret Baier. But before we get into it, remember, if you want to support this show, all you have to do is press subscribe. So, in last night's interview between the Democrat nominee Kamala Harris and Bret Baier, President Trump was mentioned 30 times in 27 minutes.
Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, think Donald Trump, Donald Trump, from Donald Trump, Donald Trump is Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump's, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, back to Donald Trump.
The only clear campaign issue she seems to be running on is that she's not Trump.
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump.
Whether it was geopolitics, immigration, cost of living, all roads led back to her hatred of Trump. As Megyn Kelly tweeted, 2 things clear from that interview. 1, she hates Trump. 2, she knows nothing other than point 1.
The country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice President.
You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
but
people
you're the
have
lever
become.
Of power.
But listen.
Bret speaks for all of us when he says,
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
He might even be speaking for Kamala herself. As to her answer,
Donald Trump has been running for office.
Does she think the American public don't know that the Democrats have been in the White House for 12 of the last 16 years?
Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people.
But would you think it?
You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
Never saw it once, Kamala?
Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
No, Jackie wasn't there. She was killed in that accident 8 weeks ago, as President Biden had noted in a statement at the time.
But here's what the cameras didn't show you of the Fox interview last night.
So we were supposed to start at 5 p.m. This was the time they gave us. Originally, we were going to do 25 or 30 minutes. They came in and said, well, maybe 20. So it was already getting whittled down. And then the vice president showed up about 5:15. We were pushing the envelope to be able to turn it around for the top of the 6 o'clock. So that's how it started. You know, I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop.
Ben Shapiro summed up the exchange in 4 words.
It was a full-scale disaster area.
This begs the question, why is Cackling Cam doing adversarial press for the first time this late? Why is she in talks to do the Joe Rogan Experience, a long-form show of a comedian who has regularly made fun of her?
She talks in like gypsy curses when they ask her something.
But it looks like the polls are turning against her. Have the Democrats decided that things can't get any worse? Have they decided they have nothing left to lose? Of course, most people who have eyes and brain cells will have seen how bad she did last night, but apparently not everyone has eyes and brain cells.
Listen, I really feel in the last 48 hours like the political wheel has turned and shifted. It was a terrific performance.
But for the undecided voter who may not have watched the interview, they may only have seen the headlines or mainstream media coverage. Now, how did the media react? CNN ran this headline: Kamala Harris spars with Fox News anchor in testy interview. Now let's use Ground News to see how the rest of the media is covering it. We specifically asked them to partner with us because their app and website has allowed me and my team to quickly see through the media bias on any story in the news cycle. Hundreds of articles were published on Kamala's Fox News interview worldwide, and we can access every single one on Ground News with context on each source. Now, right-leaning Vigilant News wrote, Kamala Harris falls apart in train wreck Fox News interview. A starkly different narrative to the previous headline from CNN. Seeing all sides, regardless of political lean, is important in making informed decisions and having more productive cross-aisle conversations, especially coming up to the election in November, which is why I appreciate that you can follow not only breaking news and each candidate and key issues, but also blind spot stories that are disproportionately covered. For this election season, Ground News also offers dedicated landing pages for both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. These pages allow you to track how much each candidate has raised and explore articles that cover their positions on key issues. I believe in what Ground News is doing, and I encourage you to check it out by scanning this QR code or go to ground.news/Winston. If you subscribe through my link, you'll save 40% off unlimited access. Ground News is subscriber funded, and by supporting my sponsors, you're supporting this show. So, given this mainstream media reaction, was going onto Fox worth it for Kamala?
This was the most adversarial interview Kamala Harris has probably ever done. Instead of getting to debate Trump again, she got to debate Bret Baier. And a lot of viewers are going to come away saying, wow, she's willing to do that. That's a sign of toughness and strength.
There may have been some truth to this. Brian Stelter continued, Trump refused to debate Harris again, so she did the next best thing and did battle on Fox. News junkies will dissect specific answers, but normies will just hear that she went into enemy territory and survived/thrived. But is this enough? As Piers Morgan explained, her problems are deep.
Well, clearly, Kamala Harris is now taking risks, and you can't knock her for that, but she wouldn't be taking these risks if she didn't have the evidence that she needs to. Young men are decisively breaking for Donald Trump, and that's why Harris needs Rogan a lot more than he may need her.
Kamala is struggling with two demographics. Firstly, the male vote. Democrats fear Harris losing too many male voters to Trump, probably why she's doing Fox News, which has a more male viewership, and why she is in talks to do Rogan, and why she's putting out ads like this.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
Come on, man.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
Nothing screams, I'm not scared of women, like saying, I'm not scared of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
It's why the Lincoln Project thought this ad was a good idea.
It's time to be a man and vote for a woman.
Now, to be fair, there are some men voting for Kamala.
Former President Jimmy Carter has cast his ballot in the upcoming election. Family members say he voted by mail using an absentee ballot today. Carter just celebrated his 100th birthday on the 1st of this month. In August, family members said Carter was still very interested and engaged in politics.
It's not just men that Kamala is underperforming with. Kamala is losing appeal to black men and even black women.
There's been a progressive decline in overall support among black men and, to a lesser degree, black women for the Democratic nominee.
It was only last week that Obama said this.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. It seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
And why Kamala published the illegal and unconstitutional proposal of loan forgiveness based on race. The proposal, or what might even be described as a flat-out bribe, also included legalizing marijuana, which is, of course, not at all a racist stereotype. Here's what Trump said about Kamala's woes. Kamala's support is collapsing with black voters. Inflation is hell. Worse, their cities are being used as illegal alien dumping grounds. If Kamala gets 4 more years, the black community loses its political power forever because their neighborhoods will all be majority migrant. Hysterical progressive commentator Joe Reed claims the rise of fascism amongst black and brown men is global.
This race will be far too close. because unfortunately we do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear, but in small pockets among black and brown men too. This happens to be a global phenomenon.
She says mainly among white men, but in a recent poll by JL Partners, Hitler's popularity is actually higher amongst black and Hispanic men than white men in America. I think even Hitler would be surprised by that. Where there might be a germ of truth in Joy Reid's ranting is that there is an increasing political divide between genders, and it's happening on a global scale. We saw something very similar in the UK. At the election, young women were almost twice as likely to vote Green than young men. The reversal is true for Reform UK. Young men were twice as likely to vote for the party than young women. Left Wing Days published this piece, How Reform UK Won Over So Many Gen Z Men. While the majority of young people plan to vote Green or Labour this week, support for Nigel Farage's right-wing party is surging among 18 to 24-year-old men. The FT wrote in January 24, a new global gender divide is emerging. Young men and young women's worldviews are pulling apart. The consequences could be far-reaching. In the US, Gallup data shows that after decades where the sexes were each spread roughly equally across liberal and conservative worldviews, women aged 18 to 30 are now 30 percentage points more liberal than their male contemporaries. That gap took just 6 years to open up. We see this in other countries like South Korea, Germany, and the UK. Are men becoming more right-wing? Or could it be that it is in fact women becoming increasingly progressive? Eric Kaufman argued as much in Unheard. Men are drifting right, but women are moving left. And friend of the show, Balaji Srinivasan, wrote on Substack that it is not just that the Republicans are becoming the men's party. Rather, it's that the Democrats are becoming the party of unmarried women. It is not just a party of men, because married men, married women, and single men all vote Republican. As of 2022, only single women vote over 50% for Democrats. The state is their surrogate provider and protector. Kamala's campaign embodies all the thrill and excitement of an HR department. It is pro-beta males. At times explicitly anti-testosterone.
Important part or an interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity.
Put forward male figures can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, gun-toting kind of guy.
Trump's campaign, by comparison, is increasingly masculine. With Elon Musk in tow, the campaign is rockets, cars, power, and strength. How do we make sense of this male-female divide? Well, men and women diverge on what issues they prioritize.
Among young men, it's the economy. Among young women, it's abortion.
17% of men say the economy is the most important issue, followed by democracy and immigration. Whereas for young women, the top issue is abortion, by a lot.
But Melissa Chen went deeper in explaining the divide for this presidential election. Men socialize by trading barbs and insults and not really meaning it. Women socialize by hurling praise and affirmations and not really meaning it. Kamala couldn't help herself when cornered by Bret in that testy Fox interview, blaming the state of the nation and all of our problems not on her party's policies, but exclusively on Trump's verbal hatefulness and divisiveness. To the Dems, his name-calling and vitriolic ramblings, such as the kind when he allegedly stoked resentment against immigrants by broadcasting the lie that Haitians in Springfield, Ohio had been eating cats, are far worse than the fact that our southern border has seen an unprecedented influx of illegal immigrants. Many of them just so happen to be criminals too. Are Americans going to continue being bothered by Trump's apparent lack of decorum when they come to learn about the crime and gang violence perpetrated by undocumented immigrants? Not to mention the transformation of their cities and the straining of public resources. No. And what's more, men don't care. The diverse and hateful rhetoric is precisely how men socialize. Maybe that's why Trump continues to hone his art for nicknames.
I'm good with names, you know.
You are.
You're
very good.
You are. I mean, Pocahontas.
Yeah.
We have names.
What about, and there was, Tampon Tim was good. What about,
the problem with Tampon Tim, it's hard to say. Comrade Kamala. How about this? Gavin Newsom, he's the governor of California.
Newsom.
He signed Newsom, I call him. Yeah.
So where does this lead us? Well, the polls continue in Trump's favor. Kamala and Trump are both in talks to do Joe Rogan. But I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. We will continue to cover the American election, and we will be coming stateside soon. So let us know who you want on the show and what topics you'd like us to cover. Until next time, though, be well.